Hi, I'm Chris from DataVids. Today I'm going to show you the ASP.NET Core Identity, which is an API from Microsoft that allows us to provide a user interface, manage the users and roles, provide the email confirmation. Let's get started. By the way, if you haven't already subscribed to my channel to get the new videos as they come out, hit that subscribe button. Alright, we'll begin. We're going to create a new project, choose ASP.NET Core Web Application. Then we're going to choose ASP.NET Core Web Application here as well. Hit Next. Give the project a name. Just call mine Example 2. I'm going to go ahead and hit Create. Now here's where it gets interesting. Change the authentication to be individual user accounts and store the user accounts in-app. Hit OK. Here you can choose Core Web App or MVC, whatever makes more sense for you. Click Create. Alright, so now you can see it's built out a few things for you, and here's where the identity content has been placed, and there's hardly anything there, and we're going to scaffold that in just a little bit, so just hang on to that thought, okay? So now if you go down to the startup, you can see that there's an application DB context here. So first let's pop over the database and refresh that. I'm connected to my local SQL Express. If you don't have that, you want to get that. As you can see, there's not an ASP.NET database there. We want it to show up. So first, Entity Framework should already be installed, but we need to do update database, and it might tell you don't have any migrations set. It didn't, which means that we've chose the right options when we got started. My SSMS and hit F5 to refresh, you can see the database is now showing up. It's been generated, and it's got all the tables needed for users and logins and tokens, etc. So now going back to my Visual Studio, we can move forward with the scaffolding. So next steps. Identity is provided as a Razor class library, but a lot of these Razor files are missing out of the get-go. So we're going to get them added to the project by right-clicking on the project and doing Add New Scaffolded Item, and then go down to Identity on the left, and here you can hit Add. It might take just a moment, and then we're going to select all the identity pages. I think I'll fast forward this part for you guys. There may be some cases where you just want to leave certain parts off, but I always just choose override all files so that I can see everything that we're working with. And then pick your data context class. It's the one I just showed you. The application DB context is available in the startup CS, and hit Add. We'll fast forward this part for you as well. Alright, so now if you pop open the account, you can see all these Razor files that have been created, and Manage has some pages within it as well. Now I know we in this case selected an MVC application, but this is Razor pages. That's how Microsoft has kind of gone back to using. It's like, I guess you could say it's kind of like web forms but done right, and that is the direction that they're pushing us to go. You can still obviously do this in a MVC application, and I've heard that if you go back to using like the .NET Core 2.0 templates, you could even get it to generate MVC pages, but I think we should stick with the latest that Microsoft has because it's going to be supported. It's going to work with more things. So you got Razor pages in our MVC application, and that's how we're going to manage our logins. Now at this point, and I'll zoom in because now we're going to start talking about specific code, but at this point I could hit F5 and run the project. Parts of it will work, but there's some things we still have to hook up, and that's probably where this video is going to get the most interesting, so hang in here, okay? So if you go ahead and click on register, it's going to set you up with a screen to register, but I haven't hooked up any email accounts to this system, and there's a little bit of code that you do have to write. It just doesn't come out of the box with Microsoft, but it does set you up with service and dependency injection, so it's super easy to do. Let's get started on that now. So go back into those identity pages, go into account, and go down to register.cshtml. We're going to open that one up. Now if you look in here, you can see that it uses something called iEmailSender, which is dependency injection. Obviously it's coming into this register model, but it's not really saying what that is, and it's because it's not fully really implemented. I mean, the interface is here, but nothing's implemented it. So it's called email sender. I'm going to copy that into my clipboard, and now we're going to go over to the startup.cs. That's what you're going to need to do as well. So if you go to configure services, and right after the identity one, right before add controllers with views, a good place to put it, we're going to do this. We're going to do services.add add transient, and we're going to choose that email sender, and we're going to implement it with a class called email sender. So just to get this resolved real quick, I'll do control dot, which is that easy way of getting those usings in there, and here's ASP.NET Core Identity. Okay, and now we're going to generate this one here. So going back to our File Explorer here, our Solution Explorer, let's add a new folder, because you're probably going to have other services as well. And what I often do in here is I have like a folder for abstract or folder for implemented, but we're only having one, so we can not get crazy with it right now. Let's just do a new class within this. Call it email sender, and it's going to implement, you guessed it, email sender. So once again, control dot, using the UI services once again. Now control dot again to implement interface, and you can see here's the send email async method, and if I was to search for that, control shift F to search in files, you'll find it's actually used throughout the application for the email confirmation. It's just not been implemented yet. We're going to implement it now. So you can actually put anything here to send an email, any third-party tools that you're already using to send emails, SendGrid, anything like that. We're not going to do that in this example. I'm going to do a really simple, quick and dirty Gmail call. You're welcome to use that code, although there's probably something more up to date. You might want to just fast forward to the end of the email sending if you already have your own email routine, because there's more to show you. So I'm pasting in here my quick and dirty email call, and it's going to need a few references. So I'm using system.net.mail for mine, and I'm using a Gmail account that I created called creamysoftware@gmail.com. You're going to want to make sure, if you do use this type of mail system with yours, that you have enable SSL turned on and you specify port 587. Otherwise it's going to give you a weird error. And if you're using Gmail, you have to turn on access to unsecured apps, otherwise once again it's going to give you a weird error. So control dot on this one to let it choose system.net, and I gotta remember to change my password because I put it out here in a video. Alright, one quick thing we do before we play it now, before we run it to show you those changes, is I've created this namespace of services. I've got to go ahead and add that to where I did this add transient. So once again with the control dot, and use my services namespace that was created there for us. Okay, now I'm going to hit F5. Here it goes. Blah blah blah. And now let's do a register and put in an email address. I'll choose Creamy Software, and we'll do a password here. Confirm that password and register. Okay, now it pops this message up saying that it doesn't really have a real email sender registered. That's actually not true anymore. We already configured that, but this register confirmation is a web page, so you got to modify it. So let's pop back into Visual Studio here. We'll stop playing and do Control Shift F and look for that line, and you will find it right here. So it's just HTML, so you can change this to be whatever. You could say thank you for registering, click here to confirm your account, or go check your email kind of thing. Now I'm going to pop my email real quick just to show you what it did. Alright, so here's my email here, and as you can see, I actually opened this one earlier, that I had to turn on less secure applications. If you're using Gmail for this, you're going to have to do that as well, otherwise you'll get these blocked attempts. So you'll figure that out through the Gmail settings. But I'm not going to cover that here because there's so many different emails that different people are using. So here's the confirm email, and this is straight out of the box identity. Well, almost out of the box. If you've watched to this point, you saw what we had to do to get here. Alright, let's keep going. I want to take your attention now back to the startup.cs because we've got the identity running, but we still need to configure it a little bit. So go back to the configure services method, and right after the add default identity, you're going to add something called configure. And right in here, if you do configure identity options, you're going to see all sorts of things that we can set up as far as password complexity, etc. Let me show you. So just type options here because the first part of our expression here. You just hit dot and you'll see all the options that you have here. So if you do with password, you can say, require a digit, maximum length, unique characters, etc. If you go down to tokens, there's a few tokens options, etc. And I'm going to provide a link in the comments pinned to the top that has some examples of what to do here. So that's about all we're going to cover today on this, but before you hang up, I want you to look at one more thing with me. I want you to think about potentially, instead of using this as your only login or your primary login, consider using Facebook, Google, or Twitter, or Microsoft as your login, and it ties right in with this using this exact same code that we just built today. We just add a little bit here in the configuration of it. And if you're interested in watching a video on that as opposed to just Googling it, let me know. I think it's a little outside the scope of this one, and it could take 10-15 minutes on its own. So just let me know if that's something you'd like to see, and I hope this was helpful. Alright, have a great day.